Welcome to the SP Marketplace training, SharePoint for SP Marketplace users, end user, intermediate training. Now first of all, this is the intermediate training. So if you didn't do the end user basic training and orientation video, that's one video, you need to go back, click out of this one, go back to that one, watch that one first, because what we're going to be covering here in this intermediate training is going to expand on some of the ideas and concepts that we covered in that first end user basic training and orientation. Okay, so I don't want to lose you, and we're only going to cover a very small segment of things in this intermediate training. So go back, catch all of the information that we gave in that basic user training, and then you'll be able to come back and watch the intermediate. First, let's do a little overview of what we're going to cover in this intermediate training. First of all, we're going to cover lists. We're going to cover how to sort and filter those lists, how to search through them, how to create list views, grouped list views, personal list views, public list views. We're going to talk about deleting items, how to run workflows manually, how to export list views to Excel. We're also going to cover lookups and VLOOKUPs. These are very powerful tools that you need to know how they're working so you understand what you're seeing when you get in and look at those, and how to use them when you create new items that are lookups in these situations. And we're also going to talk about document libraries and how we're moving away in this cloud computing and SharePoint environment, how we're moving away from working with folders, and instead we're working with metadata to be able to drill down to the documents that we want. And then once we find the documents that we want in these document libraries, how we can modify those in the Office 365 environment right there online without using any of our desktop applications. We can just go in, view and modify those, save them back, and they're updated for the next time we want to use them or the next user that needs to use them. So it's a little overview for what we've got. Let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go in to our IT support module so that we can get a good list. This is the same list that we were using on our previous training, the basic user training. We're going to go into this assets list here. So just to review, what we're looking at here is a list view. And these list views, this particular one is the all items view. We also have an active assets view, and we have an assets by department view. Now this assets by department view is what we call a grouped view, and that means that all of the demo lab locations are grouped together. That way we know what department the asset is located in. We're going to go back to this all items view, and the way that these views work is just like in Excel. We have titles across the top row here that are telling us what the content is that it's being showed. This is not necessarily all of the columns that are in this view. It's only the columns that we've selected to be shown in this view. Now an all items view usually contains all of the items that are in that list at any one particular time. So if we go to this active assets view, it would just be the ones that are active under the asset status. So it would eliminate this sales office listing here, because that is not an active status, it's a destroyed status. So if we go into these active assets, you'll notice they all say active. The sales office one is gone, and we'll go back to this all items view again. Now the other thing that we can do here with this top row is that we can filter and sort by any of these top items. So you'll see the little pop out there, the tooltip says open category, sort and filter menu, and that's what I want to do by clicking on this little arrow here. So here you see I can sort this list by ascending, or I can sort it by descending, and then I can also choose one or more, and it will live update in the background there. So there's one cell phone in our assets list, and then if I click laptop, I'll get the one laptop that's in there, If I click desktop as well, I'll get those. So as you can see, I have a live update of this list based on the filtering that I'm doing. I can also clear the filters from this category by clicking Clear Filters from Category. And then if I want to get out of this window, I just click Close. So if I wanted to create a new view, there are many other views underneath this ellipse here, and I can go in and I can say Create View here, or I could modify this All Items view by going under this ellipse here. The other option that I have for creating a view is that I can go in here and I can filter this list. Let's say I just want the laptops and the desktops, and then I'll close that, and then perhaps I only want ones with Andrew, Josh, and Peter as the owner. So I'll close that, and then what I can do to create this view is I can say save this view right here. So it's going to save this as a new view based on this filtering criteria that I have here. So if I click this, and then I'd be able to put a name in, and then I'd also be able to choose whether I want to make this a public view that everyone can see, or if I want to keep it as a personal view that only I can use and see. I don't want to do my view this way. I want to show you the other ways that we can create views. So I'm going to click Cancel right now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my All Items view. So we're back to this list. And I'm going to go into this ellipse here, and I'm going to go down to Create View. Now that's going to open up this box, and I have a choice here to choose which type of view I would like to create. I have a standard view, which is the data on a web page. I can choose from a list. That's the same kind of view that we were looking at before. I can look at a data sheet view, which is an editable spreadsheet format, and then I can look at a calendar view that uses the dates, and then I can use it as a Gantt view, which is a type of chart to see a graphical representation of how a team's tasks relate over a timeline. This is especially a good view to use in things like Project Tracker or other things where we're looking for a graphical representation over a length of time. The other options that I have here is that I can start from an existing view that's already in here. So all of the parameters for the All Items view would be used as a starting point for this particular view. Most of the time when I create views, I usually start from an existing view that's close to what I want, but not exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the All Items as a starting point, and that's going to start me out with a standard view with all the settings that All Items view had. So we'll click into that, and it's going to show me this, and I can name my view, and I'm going to call it Test View. And I have the choice here to make this a default view if I want, but it has to be a public view to be the default view. What the default view means is that right now the All Items view is the default view. If I wanted to create a new view and have that be the one when I went into the assets list, it would always default to that view. That's the checkbox that I would check to make that happen. Now I also have a choice here to make this a personal view or a public view. We're going to keep this as a public view right now. Now the next thing we see are all the columns. This is every single column. You can also think of these as the fields in the item record. These are all the columns that are in this particular list. Now I can choose which ones I want and which ones I don't want by simply checking the check mark on the left side here. And then I can also choose what order I want them to be in by changing the number on this position from the left over here to whatever number I would like that to be. So right now, left to right, I have the edit, which is a link to go into the edit view of an item. Then I have if there are any attachments to this item, the title of the item, the category, etc., etc. And that's going from left to right. That's how that view is going to be set up. I don't particularly need to know whether there's attachments on there. I do want the title to be linked with the edit menu. And then I also do want the category, the asset's status, the asset's ID, but I don't need model number and serial number for this, but I do want the vendor, and I do want the asset name, and I would like to know where it is, and I would like to know the owner. Now there are some other things that I would like to have on this particular view that I'm creating. I would like to have the description, and I'd like that to be earlier in the list than the position that it's in right now. I'd like it to be up here, probably between my title and my category. So my title is number 3 and my category is number 4. So I'm going to go across here and I'm going to mouse over this 23, and you'll see that the tooltip comes up and it says that my position from the left, description. And that's good because, as you can see, there's no horizontal rules here helping me know that this number 23 is the description. So if I mouse over it, it'll tell me which one that's corresponded to. Now I said I wanted to make this number 4, so I'll go in, I'll scroll up, I'll select number 4, and you'll see that what used to be number 4 is now number 5. It's not going to move these around in the order, but the numbering is going to be there. In other words, it's not going to move description up into its position, but the numbering it will auto-correct, so what used to be 4 is now 5. Everything moves down 1 from there. And then the other thing that I want to know for this particular one is who it was last modified by and who when it was modified. So I'll click the modified checkmark and the modified by checkmark, and those are fine at the far right of my list view. I don't need them to be in any other position. So then I'm going to go down and see what else I can do here. So that brings us to the sort section of this, and I can choose to sort by whatever I want. Again, we have a list of all of the columns that are in this list, all of the fields that are in this list, and I can go in and I can set these for whatever I want. Right now it's being sorted by its item ID, which is a unique number that is only used once in every list. I can also sort it by its asset ID, which is used for a different purpose, or I can sort it by its asset name, and that's actually what I want it to be. I want it to be sorted by its asset name. And then if I want a secondary sort, I can do that as well. I can also choose whether I want to show this sort in an ascending or in a descending order, just like we talked about back when we were looking at that items view. And then I get down to the filtered section. So I can show all items in this view right now. So I'm showing everything that's there, or I can choose some conditions. Now I want to point out over here there's some tips about how to use the filter, and I'm going to go ahead and read this because this today and me is something that I want to make sure that you fully understand. So it says, show all of the items in this view or display a subset of the items by using filters. To filter on a column based on the current date of the current of the current user of the site, type today in brackets. So you're going to use that bracket, open bracket, and you're going to type capital today and then an end bracket, and that's going to look for things in that field that were done today. And you can also add things like greater than today plus 15 days or something like that. You could do the plus emblem and then 15. Then you can also use bracket me with a capital M. And what that means is that my user modified them or my user created them. So let's see how we might use those. I could go in and I could say modified and then I'm going to say is equal to or less than or equal to right here, and I'm going to say bracket today with a capital, end bracket, and then minus, let's say 365. Now I can add additional criteria here using and, or, and I would add as many as I want. Now if I filled this one out, let's just do anything here. Oh, I put a lowercase, we got to fix that. Then I can go in here and I can say show more columns. That's going to add another one, and I can keep adding over here. I can keep adding more and more columns to filter and refine my filtering down to get exactly the results that I'm looking for. Now if I don't want to use one of these, if I have 3 here and I only want to use this one up here, what I can do is I can delete that content out, and then I can go under this and I can go back up to none. Now even though these 2 are here, since they're filtering off of none, they're not going to have an effect on what I'm looking at here. So then we get down to these less commonly used aspects of the view creation screen. We can have tabular view, so we're going to allow an individual item checkboxes. Most of the time you're going to want that to be checked, so we hardly ever go into that feature. And then you can do group by. Now you remember I told you earlier we had a grouped view that was showing grouping by department. So I can also group by any of the categories that are, any of the columns that are in this list. So for example, I could group by their category. That's the one we saw before. Now if I tried to group by something like ID, it wouldn't be very useful because, as I said earlier, the ID is always a unique field. But I could do by manufacturer, or I could do by the owner, and I could see all the different owners. Serial number is another example of a unique number that's not going to appear multiple times. So when you choose to group, you should think about what makes sense for your view. I'm not going to choose any grouping right now, but you can also do multiple levels of grouping. So we could group first by department, and then we could group by owner, and we could see all of the assets that were in the HR department grouped by each owner. So I might be able to see that a particular user has a laptop, a desktop, a mouse, a monitor, and perhaps a headset, all owned by them. They belong to that department. I can group things up like that and know what everyone has. Then I can choose whether or not I want, by default, those groupings to be shown as collapsed, in other words, just showing their groupings as a list, but not any of the contents of those groups, or expanded. I can expand those all so it would already be open and showing me the contents of each group when I got to them. And then I can also tell it how many numbers of groups to display per page. Right now we're at the default, which is 30. So we're not going to do any grouping on this view right now, but you should go in, play with grouping, and see how it works. The other thing that you can do is you can do totals. So one thing that you might want to know when you get a list is how many total items are in this list view that I have. I've created a view that's showing all items. Perhaps I want to see how many assets there are in there. So one thing that you can do here is you can go into the asset ID and you can say, you know what, I just want you to count that. At the top of the page, it's going to give you a number. Right above that, it's going to tell you how many there are. Now there's other things that you can do, not very good examples in here, but one of the things you can do is average if you have a numbers field that you're using. And you'll notice that only certain columns are listed in this, and so you can only count or use totals for the columns that are listed here. I'll go ahead and leave the asset ID total count as a setting, and we'll see how that works in just a minute. Then we have style. Now, the style that we use here, 99.999% of the time, I'm using this default style. But you can go in and you can choose any different kind of style for this view to be in. This is going to change the layout look on that page of this particular list. You can have a basic table, you can have box with no labels, you can have boxed, a newsletter view, a newsletter with no lines, etc., etc. Again, very rarely use this, but come in, play with it, see how it works. Then we can go to folders. Again, not one that we use very often, but do you want to show items that are inside of these folders or show all items without folders? So we just want to leave that at the default setting that it's at. And then the item limit. So this always is set to 30 as a default in SharePoint, but you can make this any number that you want. The more numbers that you have, the longer it's going to take to load up, but the fewer times you're going to have to hit the next page, the next page, the next page. If you have something that has 600 items in it and you want to be going through all of them, maybe you should set this to 100 so you only have to go through 6 different pages to view all of these things. We usually leave row limits at 30 on all of our products, but when you set up your own views, if it makes sense, come into this item limit and set a new limit. So we're displaying these in batches of a specific size with this radio button selected, or we can limit the total number of results returned by clicking this radio button. The difference here is that we're displaying batches of 30 with the setting that we have right now, but if I switched over and I chose this limit the total number of items, it would only return 30 items. So for example, if I had a list of 90 items, it would only return the first 30 based on the sorting that I had up here. So the first 30 items alphabetically by their asset name would be all the results that it released for me. So be careful, because you may be limiting the number of items that you're listing in this view by clicking the wrong radio button here. Again, you don't usually change this, so you don't usually have to worry about setting the wrong setting, but now you know it's there if you need to have more items in that view, or if you need to limit it to a particular number of items. Then we have mobile. So we're just enabling a mobile view access for this. That's the default. It only applies to public views. But we can make this view the default view for mobile access. We don't usually mess with this setting. We just leave it right where it is. So, but you can get in and play with it and see how you like the difference between the two. And then the number of items to display in list view web part for this view. So this is a little bit tricky. This particular view that we're creating when we're just looking at a list view like we were looking at before on our assets list doesn't have any effect on this. But when we're in the mobile view, it will only show 3 items, and you can change that here by changing it to a different number. And then the field to display when in mobile list simple views, you can have, when you're looking at it in a summarized list view basically, you can choose which one of these fields that summarized view is showing, so that you don't have to look at all of the columns left to right. It's just going to say, if you want to see this item, we're looking at the title of this item. So usually we leave that, all of those settings just as they are. We don't worry about the mobile view. So once we're done and we've got all the settings set up the way that we want them to be, we can go in and we can say, OK. It's going to process that view, and then it's going to show me what I got from that view. Now, I'm not getting anything showing in this view. So either I made a mistake in what I was asking it to set up, or I need to go in and I need to modify this view to change it because it's not showing anything right now. So let's go in there and hit modify this view. See if we can't figure out why it might not be showing anything. So none of these up here, the columns to display, nor the sort, is going to affect what it's showing or what it's not showing. The only thing that's going to affect if there's anything in that list is this modified is less than or equal to today minus 365. So let's think about that. The modified date is less than or equal to today minus 1 year. So that means that it was modified longer ago than a year. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe I need it to be greater than or equal to if I want it to be things that have been modified in the last year. So I'm going to change that over to modified is greater than or equal to today minus 365. So they've been modified more recently than a year ago. So let's take a look and see if that affects our view. Click OK, come back in, here they are. Now this is actually very similar to all items view. And you'll see here above our asset ID we have a count of 11. That means that there are 11 items in this view. And now you also see that these fields that I've added, the modified field and the modified by, are now showing up on the right hand side. This is different than our all items view. And then you'll also remember that I wanted the description to be in between the title and the category in this number 4 position here, and only one of our items has a description, so I can see that here. So let's say I wanted to modify this view and I wanted to make it a view that showed all of our active assets, so not the destroyed status, just the active status, and I wanted to only see vendors that were Dell. So it would show all of our active Dell assets for our entire company. And I wanted to modify this test view that we have to create that view. So I'd come under here, I would go down to modify this view, and I would go ahead and I'm going to change the name to active Dell assets. And then I'm going to scroll down, and I don't care when they were modified. All I care is what their vendor is. So I'm going to say vendor, and I'm going to say is equal to, and I'm going to be very careful, even though it's a short word, to spell it right. Yeah, that's Dell. It's two L's. It's not an I and an L. Okay, that's great. And I don't need to really change anything else. Now, if I wanted to, I could go in here and I could maybe change the totals, since right now I'm counting the asset IDs, but I don't want to. That's fine. I want to know the count of the asset IDs. It's a unique field, so I'll know how many of these assets I have. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And since I modified our test view, you'll see that the test view doesn't show up in our list. It's not here and it's not here. But what I do have now is active Dell assets. And so this is showing all of the assets that are Dell. But I'm remembering now that I didn't go in and I didn't say that I wanted assets that were only active. So I need to go in and I need to modify that again. I'm going to go in, I'm going to say modify this view, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to create a secondary criteria for filtering. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say asset status is equal to, and I'm going to say active. Make sure that's spelled right. Active, yes, great. And then I'm going to say OK. Now this isn't going to change the count because all of our Dell assets were active. But just to show you an example, this Dell laptop here that has the Dell demo laptop that has the description on it, it's the only one in this list that has a description. I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit that right here. I'm going to click the edit icon. It's going to open up that one record. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the asset status from active to anything else. I'm going to change it to inactive. And I'm going to hit save. And there you go. Now we have no items with description. The Dell demo laptop is not in it. So this is how we create views. They're very convenient for getting down directly to the information that you need. You can create views that your entire company can see, your entire organization, or you can create views that are just special for you. So if I was the IT manager that dealt with all of our Dell assets, this Dell active view would be a very handy view for me to have. But perhaps the whole organization doesn't need to see that, so I could create it as a personal view. Now, one thing I want to do on our demo site here before I leave out of here is that I want to go back and I want to change back the setting that I changed to that one demo, Dell demo laptop. So I'm going to go back to the all items list because the list that I was on before doesn't have that one. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look for that Dell demo laptop. There it is right there. So I have a couple of different things that I can do here. You see that the status is inactive currently. And you saw earlier I went under this edit icon, clicked on it, went in and edited that. But I'm going to do a little review on what we talked about in the basic training, and I'm going to show you how to go into the edit mode of this list and how to change things in that mode. So I'm going to click edit, and it's going to break it into this spreadsheet. So now I can see these cells. And if I click into this inactive one, it's going to give me the same drop down that I had in the item. But as you notice, that was a lot faster than going into the edit view, going in and changing that, saving it, coming back out, seeing it there. Much quicker, get you where you're trying to go a lot faster. So now I'm going to go back to this active Dell assets list. And there's that one again, back on that list. This is back to the way that I had it before. So one of the things that I want to do just to return our demo site back to the way that it was when I got in there is I'm going to get rid of this view. A lot of times, as you move through and you start using these modules, you'll end up with a lot of views that maybe meant something to you before and were really helpful, but you've created new ones and now you don't need those old ones anymore. And who wants a list, that falls off the bottom of the page here of all the different, views that you have? Try to keep it clean, only the ones that you really need. So you need a way to go in and delete these views sometimes. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to say modify this view, and I'm going to look right here, or all the way at the bottom, right here, is our delete button. I'm going to click it. It's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You're about to delete this view. Yes, I'm sure. And then we go back in and we don't have any active Dell assets list anymore. Now, one thing that's interesting though is that I'm back to the all items view. And the reason that I'm back to that all items view we talked about earlier is that this is the default view. So anytime I come into this assets list, I'm going to see all of these. Now, we've talked about how to create views and we've talked about how to modify them. We've also talked about how to delete them, but let's talk about creating one more type of view that is used fairly commonly and can be really helpful. What we're going to do is we're going to create an edit view that looks like this. And this is called the quick edit mode. And we talked about how useful that was to go in and work with items inside of this list. So one of the things that we might want to do is, we were talking earlier about how most of our items don't have a description. And maybe that's a new field that we didn't use in the past, but now we want to start using it, and we're going to need to have a description of that view in all of our different item records. And we know that we only want to add it to ones that don't already have a description. And we also know that we're going to want to be able to do that really quickly. So I'm going to stop editing this view, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, I want to create a new view. And this time, instead of doing a standard view or starting from one of these, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, I want to create a data sheet view. And when I do that, it'll give me a chance to name that view, and I'm going to say adding description view. Actually, we know it's a view. I don't have to put that in there. And then I'm also going to just make this a personal view, so only I see it. I don't want to confuse anyone out there in the public. And you have to be careful with these edit views, because when people use them, they go automatically into a mode of viewing that view that allows them to edit things. So I always like to make my edit views personal views, so only I know that it's going in there. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should say something about that in here. I'm going to indicate that this is an edit view by putting it in parentheses there. Now, what information do I need? Well, I probably don't need, since it's just meant to be an edit view, probably don't need this edit link at the far left, but I like having those on there, so I'll leave it in there for right now anyway. Then attachments, certainly don't need that. I am going to need the title and the category. I'd like to know the asset status. Asset ID, sure. Model number, no, I'm not going to need that. Serial number, nope. Vendor, I definitely need that. The asset name, yep, that's going to be good. The location, the owner, yep, I need that. I don't need the warranty information. I don't need the RAM information. Let me see if I need any of these other ones here. No, I think this would be good. I think that's about all I need. So now that I've got everything listed here, as far as columns that I want to have in the field, I'm just going to check my work. Actually, there's one more column that I need to have. If I'm going to be adding a description to these, I'm going to need to have that column up and showing in this view. So I'm going to check that, then I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to click OK. And as you can see, we have all of our items here, active and inactive or destroyed, and then we have the description field here. Now, we've already got one description here. That's the Dell laptop, and then it's got the kind of processor that it has, how many gigabytes the hard drive is, etc., etc. Now, perhaps what I have in front of me is another spreadsheet or some other source of information that's giving me these descriptions. And perhaps for these ones that are Dell laptops, they're all going to have the same format here. So obviously they're going to be Dell desktops though, so because this is the only laptop in our list. So I'm just going to drag that down. Oh, I did it one too many times. That's okay though. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say desktop. I'm going to click off of that. I'm going to look at my list, and it looks like all of our Dell desktops also have actually all of our Dell desktops have an i3. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to change that to i3. And then hard drive wise, 150 gigabytes, no, actually all of our desktops have 200 gigabyte hard drives in them. So since they're all the same, what I can do is I can change that once, and then I can go in here and I can drag that down to populate all of our Dell desktops with the correct information. They're all the same. We bought them all at once, so they're all the same. Now we've had this all-in-one HP printer. So the asset name is listed right here. It's the 4500E all-in-one printer. So I'm just going to say 4500E all in one. That's a good description there. And then I'm going to go down. We got a sales main cell phone, and it's a Motorola 2390. So I'm going to say, oh, Motorola 2390. I'll go down to the next field. Oh, this one was destroyed. I'm not even going to worry about it because we don't need a description in that one. And then we have our Exchange server. Oh, let's just call that an i5, and we'll say that it has a 1 terabyte HDD in it. Okay? Now, I'm in this edit view. I'm done editing. So I'm going to hit stop, and it's going to go through and it's going to apply all of those changes to that so that I have those descriptions. So perhaps I only needed this view just for this one time. If so, I could go in and I could delete the view now, and my changes to these item records would stay in place. Or I could leave this view because we're going to be adding descriptions on a regular basis, and that's part of my job maybe in the IT department, is to add in additional information here. So that covers the intermediate aspects of creating list views and working with them. Just to review, we've covered how you can filter or sort things using the top bar here, and then when we do that, a create a view option will come up here. You can create a view that way, or you can create a new view or modify an existing view by going into either one of these. And we've covered the two main types of view that we use, a standard view or an edit view. And then the second, or the last thing that we've covered, is the difference between a personal view and a public view. I think the next thing I'd like to go on to is how we can take this information and we can push it out to Excel, because we've been talking about it like it's an Excel chart, and there are a lot of similarities here. But one of the things that you should know is that when you use these lists, you can push it out to Excel and create more elaborate reports. You can use all of Excel's data manipulation features, and the way that we get that out into Excel is very, very simple. The first thing that you want to do is you want to get the view that you want. Whatever information you want to work with in Excel, whether that's everything or whether that's just a very limited number of records, and then also all of the columns that you want to see in Excel. Because what we're working with here is just a limited number of these columns in this view that I'm looking at now, and it's also a limited number of records. Whatever view I'm looking at when I export to Excel is also going to be what I get when I bring it into Excel. So it's not that I'm exporting the whole list and all of the fields that are involved there. It's just what I see here on the screen that's going to push over to Excel. So once I have what I'm looking for, and I'm going to go ahead and just go into our all items view, and that's going to be the set that I want to push over into Excel. So once I have the list here that I want to use to send to Excel, getting it out to Excel is pretty straightforward. I'm going to go up here under this list ribbon, and then depending on what the browser is that you're viewing this through or what your browser settings are for this, it may appear in two different places. The first place is if we go under this connect and export item in the ribbon, export to Excel is right there. Now in some other browsers or setting views, that export to Excel button may be shown anywhere over in this particular ribbon, but it's always under the list ribbon. So all I need to do is click there and then click this export to Excel, and it's going to push it over into Excel. Now this is a pretty exciting feature. We're not going to go into Excel right now. We'll cover that in a more advanced training. But what you can do is you can make a connection between your SharePoint lists and your Excel lists. So I'll give you an example of how I use this. I have a lot of reports that I need to run, and the reports that I want to run are combining information off of different lists, and they're also using more advanced graph charts than SharePoint can build for me easily. So what I do is I have Excel spreadsheets set up with multiple worksheets, and in those worksheets I have all of this data that comes over and from SharePoint. And what I can do is I can go into Excel and I can simply click update all of the data, and it'll go and grab the most recent data from SharePoint, populate that Excel document, adjust those Excel charts, and then I can print them out, present them at my management meeting, show everybody where we are with the projects that we're working on, how we did this month, how we did this week, how we did this quarter. It's all a very quick and easy process. Now if you're interested in more information about exporting to Excel or creating those kinds of charts out in Excel, look for training more specific to that in our training library. Alright, moving on now, I want to show you a few things about searching. We covered searching a little earlier on our basic user training, but here on the intermediate one I want to show you some advanced searching. Now one of the things that we talked about is that SharePoint cannot search for partial word strings. In other words, if I'm searching for, let's say, Dell, if I put DE in there and I search for that, it's going to come up with no results, even though there's lots of results in here that have the word Dell in it. So if I search for the whole word, that gives me what I'm looking for. Now what I can do, however, is that I can say DE and then I can put an asterisk after that. As you all may know, that's a wild card in a search, and when I search for things that have that, then I have the things that have Dell, but I also have things that maybe have DE somewhere else. For example, destroyed. So one of the ways that I use this is that, especially when I'm in my accounts list and I've got a customer name or a customer company name and I don't know how to spell it. Let's use Inspiron 3000 as an example here. I don't know if Inspiron is spelled, one way or another, but I do know that it starts with an I and then it goes to an N and then it goes to an S, and that's all I know. I'm not sure how it's spelled after that. I can throw an asterisk there and then I can see, oh, here's all the Inspirons. So that's one of the great search tricks that we can use, is using that asterisk to search for what we're looking for. The other thing that we can do is if we know an asset ID number, 3847 for example, I can search for that asset number. Now, one of the things that I might want to do is I might know that all those asset IDs are sequential, and I want to look at all the ones that start out 3, 8, 4, because I know that those are going to show me everything in that list that were added around the same time. And here they are. It's 3 desktops that were Dells that had sequential serial numbers because we bought all 3 of them at the same time, for example. That's another way that you can use this search to benefit. So the other thing that you can do is you can search for multiple words just fine as well. So if we said software, it's going to show me this one right here. But if I know that I'm looking for a string, like if I wanted to search for that string in the text, you'll see that I get the same results here. So you can search for multiple words, you can search for partial words, as long as you throw that asterisk at the end. And you can obviously search for numbers like 3, 8, 4, 7, even though I'm only looking at the 38481 one. It's going to bring up asset ID 3847. Or I can look up anything with a partial number, so 38 asterisk. Here's all the things that start out with 38. That's search. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy, especially once you start using the asterisk as your wildcard. So now that we're here, one of the next things I'd like to cover is how we delete an item. Let's say I entered an item here and this develop machine 3 was actually a mistake. I shouldn't have entered it that way. And I want to get rid of it. Well, what you don't see until you mouse over is that there's a checkbox over here. And I can check mark multiple items, or I can just check mark one item. The way to delete things is to check mark them, and then you're going to go up into your items ribbon. And much like the Excel export that I was talking about before, there are a couple of different places that you might find the delete item. First of all, it may be listed here. It's an X icon. It could be anywhere along this ribbon. The second place that it would be, if you don't have a lot of items on your ribbon and those items are consolidated, is under Manage. So you'd click the Manage box and you see you have View, Edit, Version History, Share With, and then you have Delete Item. This X icon is the icon that would be up in this, a little bit larger obviously, but if it was in your ribbon it's going to be up there. You can go there and you can say Delete Item. And just like any computer program would say to you, it's going to say, oh, are you sure? Because it's going to go to the recycle bin. And this is an important point. Are you sure you want to send the item to the site recycle bin? And I'm going to say, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to send this item to the site recycle bin. It's going to say OK. It's going to reload the page. And as you can see, it's not there anymore. Now I'm going to pretend like I just made a big mistake, which actually I did, because the person that uses this demo site usually to do our sales demos with, he's not going to be too pleased that I just got rid of one of his items. And it's gone, right? It's in the recycle bin. Well, it's okay. We can go get it out of the recycle bin. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under this cog up here and opening the settings here, and we're going to go down to Site Contents. I'm going to click into that. And remember, that warning said it was going to send it to the site recycle bin. Now, that's different than the site collection recycle bin. And this particular recycle bin, it's important for you to know that this particular recycle bin is only going to show things that my user has deleted for this particular site. So I'm going to go into the recycle bin, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to grab what I want out of here. Right? Here it is. It's one of the IT assets. It was deleted on today's date. Great. That's the one I'm looking for. I need it back before Andrew finds out that I've deleted one of his assets. Now, I have two choices here, restore selection or delete selection. I bet you can guess, if I want to bring it back into my list, which one I should click. That's right, restore. Those of you who said go ahead, click delete, it's not very nice. So it's going to ask me, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Thanks for asking. It's going to reload this list. Just like it disappeared off of my list when I deleted it, it's also disappeared out of the recycling bin. So it's been restored. I'm going to be able to go to View All Assets to take me back to that list view that I was looking at. And here it is. Whew. That was a close one. Just brought it back from the dead. So that's how we can delete and how we can restore items if we accidentally delete them. There are some other things that I can do when I check mark an item in a list. If I go up here again, check mark this with this same item check marked, and I go into the items list, I can go in and, like I said before, I can manage it. I can look at the version history, which will show me who has made changes to this and when and what kinds of changes they've made. I can show who this is shared with, or everyone who has access to this. I can also go in and edit. I can go in and view from here, but I can also do those here or by clicking the title here. But then I can also go in and I can activate some workflows on these items. So these would be the workflows that are on this list. And I can go in and I can run workflows manually by checkmarking an item in that particular way. I can also share and track. I can go in and I can do a SharePoint alert, which is this bell here. I can also go in and I can add an alert using the InfoWise alert tools. I can print the particular selected item. And then I can also run actions manually. Now, actions are much like workflows, but actions are in InfoWise, and we'll talk more about that when you get into training on the InfoWise tools. But I'm just going to show you real quick. If I go in here, it's going to bring up a window, and for this particular list, there aren't any actions that are defined for this list that are set as being able to be manually run. But if there were, they would show up here. I could run them against that item right here. Go back, select this, go under here. I can also view the action history for any items in here, and it will show me if any actions have ever been run on this particular item. So that about wraps up what we wanted to cover in lists for this training. Now we're going to move on to lookups and VLOOKUPs. To do that, we're going to move off to another list. So to talk about lookups and VLOOKUPs, we won't have to go too far. What we're going to do is we're going to go down here to our cases list in IT. And I want you to keep in mind, this is not a training about our IT support module. This is a training about how to use SharePoint when you're using SharePoint inside of SP Marketplace's modules. So don't worry that we're spending a lot of time in the IT module. If you don't have the IT module, these principles hold true across all of our modules, and I'm just using the IT support demo site as a way to show you how these are working in a, maybe not a real world setting, but at least in a real world in our demo world setting for what we're trying to cover here and get you trained up on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in to the edit view of one of these items. So as you can see, you probably are familiar with this by going through some of our other trainings. We've got several tabs across the top of this item record here. And then all of those columns or fields that we've been talking about, those are all showing here. And we've got all the ones on the General tab here. We've got all these ones here that are on the Details tab. And then we've got all the ones here that are on the work log, all the ones that are on the SLA, and then we've got all the ones that are here on this tasks list. And one of the things that I want to point out here is that this task list looks a little bit different, right? We've got a magnifying glass over here. It's creating another list, it looks like, and it's got a row across the top, a header row, telling us what these are. And then it's also got this green plus sign. Now just so, in case you missed it before, we're going to go to the General tab, nothing that looks like that. Details tab, nothing that looks like that. Work log, nothing. Get to this tasks, something is different here. And this is what we call a VLOOKUP or a lookup field. The reason that these are important is that these allow you to look at other lists and bring in items that are related to a particular case. So this case has a particular task assigned to it, and that task lives on the tasks list, and it's related to this particular case. So the case title of printer won't print has a task related to it. So if we went in and we looked at the task list the way that we were looking at the cases list before, we would see a bunch of different tasks in that list. And one of the fields would be case, and the case for this task, the entry in the case field, would be printer won't print. Or more commonly, it's actually the unique ID that this particular case is, because we might have 10 or 12 cases that are called printer won't print. That's a pretty common IT case complaint. So it's actually related to the task or to the case ID in the task list. But what's important for you to understand here is that this is a parent-child relationship that we're looking up to. So the parent is the case, and the child is the actual task here. And as we all know, one set of parents can have many children, and that's true here as well. You can have multiple items, multiple tasks in this case, that are related to this particular case. So we already have one that says that we need to purchase a printer cartridge. Now I'm going to add another task here. And when I click this green arrow that says add a new task, it's going to open it up. And it's not going to tell me or ask me anything about what case I want it to be related to. That's because it's already pre-populating the child values, the values that we were talking about, the related case ID. It already knows that we want to associate it to this case because we're creating it out of this case. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to say we also need to do a clean out of the printer. We're going to give that a start date of the 31st, and we're going to give that a due date of the 1st. And we're going to go ahead and assign that to myself, and we're going to put that as a normal priority, and then go ahead and leave the task's status as not started. A detailed description of this, I don't know about detailed, but we will say bring canned air and rags, because we're going to be cleaning out the printer, right? And then do I have a predecessor? I could. As a list of all the tasks that I have here, I could go in and I could choose the purchase cartridge task that we have here as the predecessor, because I'm going to have to purchase the cartridge before I go and clean it out, because I want to install that cartridge and I want to I want to install that cartridge and clean it out at the same time, so I need to make sure that Linda has done that before I do it. So I'm going to add that as the predecessor, and then I'm going to hit save. And as you see, we have the clean out the printer task has been added to this list. So I can go in and I can look at the purchase cartridge one. It's going to show me all the information that she has in there about that. The detailed description, there is none. Predecessors, there are none. Related items, here it is, that related case that we were talking about. Printer won't work. So if I wanted to, I could go and it would jump over into a new tab, and I could go and look at that same case that I was just in. So now you're starting to understand how these are related when we're using a VLOOKUP. Some of you might be familiar with a VLOOKUP in Excel. If you are, it's the same basic concept. We're looking up between two lists, something that they have in common in a particular column, and we're saying, hey, if this is the same in this column as it's listed in this column, then we want to bring some of that information over into this. So in this particular example, we're taking and we're looking up tasks lists items for cases based on what case they're related to. Now there's some other things that use the same stuff. IT documents, that has a way to add a new document, and you can have multiple documents added to that. So for example, if you had a user's manual that you wanted to relate to a case, you could do that right inside of here. You also have change requests. If you wanted to relate a change request to this, we wanted to change it out for a new computer, or we wanted to make some change to it, put some new RAM in there, you could add that to the change request list as well. These are all just VLOOKUPs that are bringing in data from other lists so that you can see them in the case that they're related to. Now the next thing that we're going to cover is just a regular lookup. Now these are a little bit different. So like we said, VLOOKUPs are used for looking up information that's over on a different list than the list that we already are in. In this case, we're in the cases list, and if we were going to add something to the change request list, we could add it, and it's a VLOOKUP is looking at a different list. But what we want to cover now is what we call a lookup, or a regular lookup. So one example of a regular lookup on this detail status here, this tab, if we scroll down, we can look at related cases. And so all related cases are obviously going to be in the cases list, which is the case that we're in. So this is a lookup field that's looking at the title of all the other cases. We've called it related cases because we want to relate some cases together. When we look at this list, we're seeing all the other cases that are in this list. So if I wanted to relate the can't get mail to this, I could just click add here. It's going to add it to the right side. I'm going to go into this other one, this email issue one, add it to this one. Now I've got two related cases that are in there. Now if I changed my mind and said, oh, that wasn't the one that I wanted, I could click remove and put it back over there. Now I'm sure you're seeing this box is a little small. It's hard to read what these are. I'm only seeing the first few. But what I can do is I can mouse over that, and it's going to say IT case. It's going to show me the whole thing, Internet Test Daryl. So that's how I can see the full list, no matter how long the name of that related case is. So in review, lookups are looking up information that is in the same list. It's not necessarily in the same item on the list, the same row on the list, but it's looking up out of all of the rows in the list, any piece of information that's in any column. I can set up a lookup that's going to go look and see what's in that same list. Now if I want to look at something that is not on that particular list, it's on a different list, then I have to use what's called a VLOOKUP. And you can usually notice a VLOOKUP because they've got this little recycle or reload icon above them, and then you also have the add new. And what you should expect to happen when you go in and you add a new item is that it's going to pre-populate some child values that are going to relate it back to the case in question. So in this particular example of creating a new change request, I'm just going to go in and populate the only required field with the words test, and I'm going to click the save button, and it's going to come in and it's going to update that. That means that it already knew to pre-populate a particular field in the change request list for the related case that was there. That's the way that you should expect ours to respond when you go and you create a new item using a VLOOKUP. Now the last thing I want to cover in this intermediate training is document libraries. And we don't have to go very far again. And while I'm going there, I'll say the same thing I said before. Even though we're spending all of our time in the IT support module, this is just an example. These principles apply to all of our document libraries. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go into the IT support documents library. And it's going to look a little bit different, right? Right now they're going through a little new look and feel. So this is what document libraries used to look like. What it's telling me up here is that document libraries are going to get a new look, check it out and let us know what you think. We might do that in just a minute, but first I want to show you the way that they look currently, and then we'll show what the new look and feel looks like for these document libraries. So document libraries are a little bit different than the lists that we were looking at before. They look fairly similar at first glance, but they're much different. The first thing that's different about them is that they're all documents, just like a folder view that you would have on your PC. Each one of these is a particular document that's either related to a case, related to an asset, or related to any other aspect of our site. In fact, you can see here, these are the related assets, these are the related cases. So if I wanted to go under and I wanted to see ones that were related to a particular asset, I could select it from here. Now in our demo site, we don't have a lot of things related to particular assets or particular cases, but I will select this one item, and then I will be able to show you that I can filter this list of documents just down to one particular asset that I'm looking for. I want to see just the ones that are related to that Dell demo laptop. If I want to clear that filter, I can do it here. If I wanted to just see things that were related to particular cases, I could do that in here. We don't have any in this particular list that are related to a particular asset, a particular case right now. Now, the other thing that's different about one of our document libraries is that these document libraries allow you to create a new document, upload a new document from your computer to this library, or you can sync this to create a synchronized copy of this library on your computer. One of the reasons that you might want to do that is if you were going to be working offline, you didn't have access to the internet, but you knew you're going to be working with all of these documents. You'd want to sync that to your computer by clicking this button here. This new icon here, what that's going to allow you to do is create a new document from scratch. So if I click it, it's going to say, which one of these fine Microsoft products would you like to use to create a new document with? I need to create an Excel spreadsheet. Click right there. I need to create a PowerPoint presentation. Click right there, whatever the case may be. The next one is upload. All right, you want to upload something? Well, let's go find out where that is. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say choose files. I'm going to navigate to the file that I want. I can check or uncheck the overwrite existing files. Be careful with that one. And then I'm going to hit OK. But I'm not, because I don't have anything chosen. I'm just going to click cancel. So I can also create different views of this document library. I'm looking at all documents right now. I can also look at by related asset, by related case. Those are grouped views. I can also look at my documents, things that I'm the owner of. I can also look at this view called title. I imagine that's probably an example view that we've used for some other reason. Once I have the view that I want here, or I see the document that I want, I can very easily go in and see this document by just clicking on it. It's going to open up, it's going to show me the document that I want, and when I'm done with it, I can just simply done reading it, or I can go in and edit it using Word Online. I'm tying this all in to the 365 environment. I haven't gone to my desktop programs once yet, right? So I'm going to go back, and here I am back in that library. Now there's some important things that you need to understand about these document libraries. Some of you, myself included, up until I really started wrapping my head around this concept, will want to create folders in here. And you certainly can. There are ways that you can create folders in this library. But you may not want to, because what you really should be doing here is using metadata. And the metadata is the things that we were talking about before. For example, what item is it related to? Instead of having a folder for items related to the Dell demo laptop, I can just use the metadata to drill down to what I want. That way, I can look at it in a bunch of different ways. If I had it in a folder, I would have to know what the name of that Dell demo laptop was, go to that folder. I'll be looking under D, it's actually under A, right? There's a lot of things that can be confusing. I can also search based on different combinations of that metadata. What modified date was it? Who's the owner? What's the name of it? What type of file is it? All of these kinds of things are information that I can use. And the way that we get that metadata into this is that we can go into the record and we can edit it. So this has given me a little preview of what this document looks like. It's pretty nice. This is page 2 of a 54-page document. I can kind of go through and be like, is that the one that I'm looking for? The one that I was looking for had some images. Yeah, this is the one. This is the user's manual that I need, because I need to know what this port right here is for on this laptop, or whatever the case may be. So that's one thing that I can do. The other thing that I can do is I can open the document from here in the Office client or whatever. I can also go into this ellipse here and I can look at all of these different things. One of them is the properties of this particular item. So I'm going to go into that. And what you see here is that I have the ability to change the metadata for this item. I can change the title of it, I can change what asset it's related to, or I can relate it to a case. I'm going to go in and I'm going to relate it to keyboard not working, because that's a case that I was working on where I needed to use this Dell laptop user's guide. I'm going to save that. Coming back to this list, and here you see now we have something that's related to a case. So before you go trying to mimic your existing document libraries, whether those are folders on a server or on a OneDrive or on your personal computer, I want you to consider the possibility that maybe you could accomplish the same thing using the metadata that are in these item records. So one of the other things that we need to talk about right now is that if I go in here and I'm going to go in and actually I'm going to go back, because what I just tried to open was a PDF, and what I really want to open is a Word document, because that's something that I can actually edit. So I'm going to go into this one that we looked at before, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say edit this document, and I'm going to edit it right here in my Word browser. I'm not going to edit it on the desktop application. Now when I have this and I have it in this edit mode, I have checked it out. Now if I take this onto my desktop application, it will actually ask me if I want to check it out. And that's the only way that I can edit it, because only one person can edit a document at a time. And then when I'm done on the desktop application and I close it down, it will ask me if I want to save it back to the document library. I'll say yes. It'll say, do you want to check it back in so other people can use it? I will say yes to that. But when I'm using it online here, it knows what I'm trying to do, and it says, all right, I'm going to check this out for you. I'm going to let you go in. I'm going to let you change whatever you want. Perhaps I want to go in here, make this red, make the title a little bit bigger, and perhaps center it. And then when I'm done with that, as you see up here, it's already saving it as I go. If I go in here, type a few things in, it's going to give me saving, 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 and eventually it will say saved, and we will move on with our day. There it goes, saved. And then I'm going to come back in here, I'm going to delete all that jibber jabber that I did, and it's going to say that it's saved. And whenever I want, I can move away from this document by either clicking the back button on my browser or by going under File and closing out of it that way. So now I'm back here. And here's my change. Go back, and I'm right there. So let's take a look and check out what the new document libraries are going to look like. So this view is a little bit different than the one that we had before, but we still have the same field list up here, the top row, the column list up here, the column row, header row, whatever you want to call it. But now what we have instead is a search bar over here. And that's going to allow me to easily move in between all the different document libraries that I have. I can go in and I can say, hey, let's take a look at my workspace, or I can navigate around using this bar on the left. All of the things that we had before, the upload, the new, the sync, etc., are all there, but I can also set up a little bit more easily. I would have used the ribbon previously to do this, but they're just putting these items in the ribbon. I can set up an alert. Anytime a document gets edited, I'd get an alert to it. Anytime I want to set up an InfoWise alert rather than a SharePoint alert, I would use this. If I want to print it, if I want to view the help content, if I want to run actions or see the actions history on any of these documents, that's all up here in the ribbon. We're going to go back to our Internet portal. We're going to go down here to our Document Center. Now this is another kind of, this is a home page for your Document Center, and what we're doing is we're looking at different HR policies and different company forms. And as you can see here, this is a folder icon. So these particular ones we've set up and we've put into folders. We thought about the metadata option. We decided that when we were going in and looking for company policies, we'd want to know what kind of policies we were looking for. We want to drill down to a department-based or a categorical base of those policies, and that made sense for us. We decided to put them in that way. So we can go in and we can look at the safety policies that are in here for our fictitious radiant solar company. And we have two policies in here, the emergency procedures and the safety policies. So you notice we've stayed in the same view here, but we've drilled down into that particular folder, and then we can view that policy in this document library if we wanted to. We also have company forms. These are commonly used forms. We need you to fill out a new W-2. We need you to fill out an I-9, etc., etc. These are forms. These are also a document library. Those are just a couple of different versions that we have of the document library in our particular module here, the Internet portal. A quick overview of what we've learned, and encourage you to go click around, play with some of these things yourself. So the first one is views. A lot of your time in SharePoint, in the SP Marketplace modules, is going to be spent in these views. You're going to want to learn how to sort them, filter them, look at them in different ways, create your own views, edit existing views, modify existing views, work in this edit mode for quick editing when you need to make changes to multiple records in a hurry. Those are all really important skills that you're going to use on a regular basis. We've also covered how to find an item with search. Don't forget, you can use that wildcard asterisk. It's going to help you out a lot. We've also covered how to push these lists out into Excel. We've also covered how to select items and delete them and restore them. Try it. Go delete something. It's test data. Just put something new in, delete it, go restore it. That way you don't freak out when you accidentally delete something for the first time. We've also talked about VLOOKUPs and regular lookups and the difference between the two. Remember, you can go into the cases list. If you want to see an example of this, you can bring up any case, and you can go to one of these ladder tabs that we have here, like the task list. And you can go into one of these tabs like tasks, and you can create a new task, and it will add it to that list because it knows the child value. Or you can go in here, you can see a regular lookup, add a few things over, move them back over to the other side. Get used to what this is doing and understand that when you have a situation like this where you're adding something over, that's a lookup. These are things that are in the same list that you're currently working out of. However, when you go to tasks or when you go to change tab and you add a new item using a VLOOKUP, that's something that's going to be added to another list, and it's going to be related to the list that you're working in right now. The other thing that we covered was document libraries and how to use metadata in those document libraries to save yourself from having to create a bunch of folders or create a bunch of different difficult to navigate pathways to get into these things. You can create your own unique views for these and then use those views to drill down to exactly the object or the document that you need. Then when you go into these documents, you can open them up in Word Online. You don't have to go to the desktop application. You can open it up there to view it, or you can go in here and you can go in and edit it in your browser. Make whatever changes you want. It'll tell you that it's been saved. You can just hit the back button and go right back where you came from, and you're off and running. So that's what we've covered. I hope this has been informative. Look for the next training in the series. We're going to be moving on. Really, right now, congratulations. If I had a diploma, I'd give it to you. You are ready to get training in the specific modules that your organization has purchased. We'll be providing those as training videos like this one. We're going to walk you through each step of the way, and hopefully this has been helpful. You're well on your way. See you next time.